Good evening and welcome to Hello, It's Us, a program based on the premise that things in general go better if we're all working together as opposed to you, the me, and them working at cross purposes. Hello, It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration of the Extended Dream Foundation and all the folks here at Public Access Television helping us out. As you can see, we're doing our program tonight from the rainforest of Brazil as we eagerly anticipate the United States match tomorrow morning and are here first in line to get seats. I'm Terry Cunningham. With me at long last again is my co-host Keith Ruff, who's recovering from an illness. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dave.
And coincidentally, today we'll continue a discussion I started a couple weeks ago about aging and disabilities.
Yes.
And let you go ahead and start a little bit.
Okay. I think it's very important to talk about aging and disability with health because more of us are living that much longer. So we're more likely to have health problems that would not ordinarily happen.
Well, you know, I guess I don't know that the health problems are all that much different than a person without a disability.
I agree.
But they impact us
more
in so many other ways.
Yes, because my latest illness put me down for 8 days.
Mm-hmm. And you know, you're right with healthcare and medicine making lots of advances. We are living a lot longer.
Yes.
I mean, when I had my accident in 1971, the only information out there said I was likely to survive 5 years post-injury. Well, you know, it's been 43 plus.
Yeah.
And you know, that has a whole lot to do then with all the other services that it takes us to survive.
Yes.
You know, and with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Rehabilitation Act, the Olmstead decision, and all kind of movements to get folks with disabilities into the community.
Yeah.
You know, a vast majority of the old several thousand person state hospitals have been closed through the years.
Yep.
Because it's been found that with supports, folks with disabilities can live in the community at a whole lot less cost.
And be more functional.
Yeah. You know, and you know, there's more and more things like, you know, the special schools.
Yeah, they're gone now.
That were part of school systems.
Part of my life.
Because stuff started being integrated.
Yeah.
So you have more people who are continuing on to college and graduate work after. You have more people joining the workforce, although it's really horrifying to think. I read an article yesterday that said, you know, there's like 56 million people with disabilities in the United States.
Yes.
80% of those unemployed.
Yeah,
or underemployed.
That is
so
very thorny.
So you look at that and consider, okay, because of all these things, people are living longer. But what good does it do you to live longer
without doing
if you don't have employment. You know, you're sitting around and, you know, basically stuck in a life of poverty, because the vast majority of programs for assistance with people with disabilities, including the healthcare programs, you pretty much have to live
in poverty.
at or below the poverty
Yeah.
level. You know, most programs have a 200 to 300% of poverty level
Yes,
for somebody to still be eligible. So, you know, we have buildings that are accessible, we have programs that are accessible, we have transportation that's accessible, we have stores,
yeah.
recreational
Everything.
facilities, all these things for people to be able to use, but employment lacks so far behind,
It
so
really does.
people really can't enjoy. Well, one of the problems with folks who have to be in residential programs, whether that be group homes or other community things, especially group homes and nursing homes, whatever income they have, all that income except for $52 a month goes for care and keep.
Yeah,
And with that $52 a month, they have to take care of all of their personal items, toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, all that stuff. Any transportation costs they may have,
wow.
and whatever recreation or snacks they might want to have. You know,
It doesn't make much.
well, it certainly doesn't when you figure that. I think that works out to about $1.75 a day
Wow.
to take care of all the needs you have, or all the things you would like to do. Who can do that?
No one that I know of.
Well, and then also co-pays
Yeah,
on prescriptions now. So, you know, there's all that needs to go into account, because it's, you know, the whole quality of life. You know, and there's often the decision or the conversation about which is more important, quantity or quality. Yeah. Do you want to live till you're 80 years old, but live in poverty the whole time and not be able to enjoy it? Or would you rather not live as long but have some more of the enjoyment? You know, one of the requirements for most programs have like a $2,000 resource limit on you.
yeah.
You know, you can have a house, you can have a car. There's lots of other life insurance policies can count against you, whatever, but $2,000. The chairs that Keith and I sat in are in the mid 20,000s.
Yeah,
You know, to have something go wrong and have to replace it, $2,000 may not even scratch the surface.
no.
You know,
It won't.
as far as, you know, mattresses to help prevent
Yeah,
pressure wounds
yeah.
can run anywhere from $3,000
Up,
to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000.
yeah.
And of course, insurance companies and Medicare and that don't pay for a lot of that stuff. Oh, no, you can get by on something else. Well, getting by means you're going to have wounds, you're going to have
Yeah.
different things.
And you're gonna have more health care problems.
Exactly. You know, for years, there was the conversation about preventative health care. oh, let's get people insurance that works and they can go see
Yeah.
doctors, get that stuff
Yeah.
so that you get treated before something gets to where it's an emergency room visit or you're really ill.
Yeah.
Well, now things like catheters, well, a few years ago, they changed the rule that, you instead of having however many intermittent catheters you needed a month, you could only have 30, which meant you had to sterilize catheters after use.
Yeah.
Well, for people who are out and about, you're seldom in a location where
Well, you can do that.
you can do that. So you had, in order to get more, you had to prove that you had a chronic urinary tract infection, which, we both recently had bladder infections. Well, that's the most asinine thing because you spent 8 days down in the
Yeah.
hospital, whatever. 8 days in the hospital is a whole lot of money,
Yeah.
and
It came to 33.5.
yeah. Why would you not treat it
Before.
to begin with?
Yeah.
Let it have that. It's the same kind of thing with pressure wounds. I have a bed that's an alternating pressure bed,
Okay.
which is okay, but it doesn't turn me. I live alone, there isn't
Yeah.
turning involved. There are beds out there that will turn you from
That
back
is,
to side to side to side,
Yeah.
which is the big thing in preventing pressure wounds, which can begin in as little as 2 minutes
Yeah.
if you have an area of skin that's denied, circulation.
When I was in bed that week, I noticed my heels were getting very.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're sitting or lying, any bony prominence,
Yeah.
is like a hello call
Yeah.
for a wound. You're laying and your shoulder blades and your
Oh,
hips and your elbows.
Yeah.
Well,
And your buttocks.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know whether you were aware of this or whether they mentioned anything when you were in the hospital this time. After 43 plus years in a chair with pressure ulcers, one of my biggest enemies, I found out that if you have a bladder or urinary tract infection, it puts you at risk for pressure wounds.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Where did this come from?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It somehow affects the skin, and it didn't occur to me, and I, should have checked this years ago, because I smoked for a lot of years.
Okay.
Well, then they always said, well, it affects your skin. I thought they were talking about you. Made your face all wrinkly. No, it could cause pressure wounds. Nobody told me that. I mean, I may not be the brightest bulb in the lamp, but if somebody had told me, you need to stop smoking, and it'll help you not get pressure ulcers, I'd have stopped in a heartbeat.
It would have helped.
Yeah. Instead, I think the last time I quit, and I quit back in like 1989, was when cigarettes finally hit 2 or 2 1/4 a package.
Yeah.
I'm just cheap and said, nope, that's it. Drove my family crazy because you're not supposed to be able to quit like that, but that was it. Or the whole, keeping hydrated properly.
Yeah.
And that just is important for so reasons. many reasons, and again, because skin care is one of them. But you let yourself get dehydrated, and it affects your kidneys.
That's what I
It
did.
it affects your brain. It affects your heart. And unfortunately, typically you don't notice it, but other folks do, and you start looking a little wonky, and not necessarily responding to questions correctly, or not asking questions correctly, and it just really messes your system up.
Or having very sluggish reply, very low.
Yeah. And it's so important to drink enough.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to tell that you're dehydrated is, one, you produce very little urine,
Yeah.
and two, what you do produce looks like orange juice concentrate.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just thick and nasty, and simply drinking enough holds that off. But and these are things, not only because you have a disability, but everybody needs to watch.
Yeah.
But it has the potential of affecting us much more.
A little more.
And part of that is, part of the dehydration and bladder infection, that is too, low blood pressure.
Oh, yes.
And you and I both had that.
Mine was below 90. No.
I beat you. I didn't end up hospitalized, but I had doctor's appointments. Mine was 80/35. And I don't know what kept them from knocking me out of my chair and starting CPR. And it ended up that day that the only way they let me out of or kept from admitting me, was to get an IV of fluid and to promise to come back the next day.
Okay.
But my blood pressure runs in such a roller coaster. They didn't immediately panic.
Now again, the public should realize that he had to go home with the IV in him.
No, they just made the bag.
Okay.
They made me sit there till the bag ran
Okay.
through, and then sent me home.
Yeah.
But I have been at home with IV fluids. But you can end up having other symptoms and having to go. Your blood pressure can be high, your blood pressure can be low. You can be home by yourself any time of the day or night, and suddenly have your blood pressure drop and pass out, or do whatever, and find yourself, when do you come to again, or when does the next person come in to see what's going on? But so in the last show, when I was talking about some of this stuff, I mentioned that, once you should do it all along, but once you get to a certain age, you got to quit lying to your doctor.
You got to accept a little help.
Well, as I say, if the doctor asks whether you've been short of breath or you've had chest pains and that,
You got to be honest.
you got to tell them, and you can't. No. Or are you eating right? Oh yeah. Yep. Have you had an appetite change? No, not because all that's information that your doctor needs. And I can remember my grandfather and father going to doctor's appointments and some of the stuff they would tell, or they'd go with a particular thing that was bothering them. And they'd come back from the doctor, go, oh, well, what did the doctor say about such and such? Nothing. Why not? He didn't ask about it. And you didn't raise the issue? You don't do that to a doctor. Doctor asks you questions. He didn't ask that question, must not have been important. It's like, oh my God. But, all the things. And it's much like anything else that we talk about, and, how do disabled people do this, or what do disabled people want, and, pretty much to live like everybody else. And again, the aging and issues, everybody sees changes in their life as they get older. And there are things that either you can't do once you get to a certain age, or that you need a little assistance, or that it takes longer. I mean, I remember my grandfather for years said he was going to quit gardening. Going to quit, not going to do it anymore. And I said, Grandpa, you'd love gardening. Why don't you have a smaller garden? Because I've always had that one out there. Okay, well, what is it that's bothering you? Takes me 2 hours to weed the garden. So, used to be able to do it in 1/2 hours. Grandpa, it was 25 years ago. It's not a big deal. But he would go out to weed and, wouldn't take it easy. Boy, he'd start and he'd be going, and he'd go with his head down for however long, and then would stand up suddenly, and he'd pass out, and bam, face first in the garden. Well, his garden faced a street and neighbors' houses, so when he'd come to, it'd be a sly little peeking, looking around, see if anybody's watching, and he'd get himself up on his hands and knees and crawl to the end of the garden where there was a fence he could get over to and pull himself up. And, neighbors would yell, you okay over there, John? What's going on? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Because God forbid that 70 whatever or 80 whatever, could he ask his neighbors to come help? Because he passed out.
And that's one thing for you out there. You gotta learn to accept that when you age, you need to change your routine a little, no matter whether you're disabled or not.
Yeah. And, I think the key to that is change it. You don't have to give something up.
No.
And as I said, my grandpa had this humongous garden, and it was just him. And by God, nobody went in my grandpa's garden to pick anything. My grandpa decided that nobody knew how to pick it but him.
Okay.
So he had to go in even if there was somebody else there. And that had been the size garden he had when he was giving it away. And he was still, would give away the great bulk of what he had.
Yeah.
But, even my parents, when they would go up to visit in the summertime and would go out to the garden to see what was there, and my mom would tell Grandpa what she'd want. Those aren't going to be ready till tomorrow. I'll be in Marshalltown tomorrow. No. Can't pick them before they're ripe. My dad would say he'd go out and get whatever. No. And Grandpa would go out and Grandpa would dig or pick whatever.
Yeah.
And my dad could pick it up off the ground, or he could hand it to my dad and he'd put it in the basket, whatever, but no. He'd go, most of the time in the summer, he wouldn't leave home. He wouldn't come visit because he grew flowers for the garden club at the fair, and he had his garden, and boy, you can't leave the garden alone. But the last thing he would always do before he would leave for a day or two would be to rake the garden.
Wow.
So there wasn't a footprint or anything in it. And as soon as he'd get home, he'd run out to the garden and look and see who had been in his garden. And he could tell by the footprints which of his friends had been raiding his garden. It was just crazy. And when my grandma was alive, I mean, my grandpa's responsibility for vegetables ended when he put them on the porch.
Yeah.
Then it was up to when she was still alive, my grandmother to cook them, to give them away, to throw them away, to do whatever she wanted with them. But he had done his thing. And she tried for years. He did finally cut down from a second garden that was nearly a block away from his home, that he pushed his tiller and whatever to.
Wow.
He finally cut down from that. And it's like, Grandpa, you just don't need all that. But, you know, there's just so many folks who, you know, you kind of determine your aging, and I know we do all the time too, determine what we can't do anymore. And whether it's, you know, to clean a yard up or, you know, golfing or any of those things, you know, just, you have to control it.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the less things you have control over.
And the more you gotta realize you need to cut back a little.
Well, yeah. And one of the last things is driving.
Yeah.
You know, it's folks who get older, and I mean, I made the same decision myself. You have to realize at some point you just got to stop.
Yeah.
Because, and you need to stop earlier than later, because you don't want to find out you shouldn't be driving anymore because you hurt somebody.
And you don't want to accident yourself.
Yeah. But what else?
Well, as you out there can see, healthcare, whether it's for people with disabilities or without, is very important to follow up, no matter what age you are.
Yep. Well, we've burned through our allowable time,
Yes.
as they say. Great to have you back.
Thank you, Dave.
Over the next several weeks, we've got some interesting shows coming up and some guests.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Join us again.
Have a good week. Bye now.